In April, auctioneers Darren Julian and Martin Nolan were still busily trying to sell Michael Jackson's possessions. Fresh from winning their courtroom battle with Michael, who had just tried but failed to stop the auction he once wanted from happening, the boys were feeling reflective.
Our hope is that Michael will embrace this and come and see the exhibition that we've done and embrace the auction that he was so excited with from the beginning.
A few years ago, all thoughts of suing a couple of auctioneers were a million miles away from Jackson, who was still on top of the world, happily buying sparkly costumes, figurines, waxwork butlers, the very things Darren and Martin would one day be trying to sell. But Jackson was also donating millions to his own and other people's charities, and becoming officially the planet's most Jesus.
Now, this is an interesting piece, a little bit scary actually. It's a baby in a carriage with animatronic arm and leg. Why the left side doesn't move, I don't know, but the head and everything else moves. But yeah, it's a little bit of a creepy piece.
Anyway, Michael was also giving millions to charity, becoming officially the planet's most charitable celebrity.
Michael's sense of who he is not only that children are important and children's health and children's protections and safety are important, but that charity in general was something that he felt really strong about.
All his charitable do-goodings were about to be forgotten when in 1993 he was accused of child abuse. Jackson eventually settled with the boy out of court for $22 million and no charges were laid.
After the Jordie Chandler allegations, Michael Jackson's image was ruined, I think, beyond repair. Pepsi pulled out of the tour at that point, and the Dangerous tour was canceled, and the public began to wonder, who is this man?
And his image didn't improve much with his surprise marriage to Elvis Presley's daughter Lisa Marie later that year.
Yeah, I think when Michael Jackson married Lisa Marie, it was a remarkable and stunning image. At a time in which Michael Jackson really needed very much to have the subject changed.
The public just didn't buy it because it looked like Michael was trying to refashion his image after the allegations, and that this was just another media ploy.
The media has a capacity to be a great friend, a great lover, a great seducer, but also a great enemy.
Now, with the love affair between Michael, the media, and his record-buying public on rocky ground, it was looking like it would be the star's wallet that would ultimately feel the hit. And there had already been indications he was starting to experience money worries when in 1995 he merged his Beatles back catalogue with Sony for a reported $95 million.
Michael merging the Northern song catalog with Sony was purely a business decision because Michael figured that the largesse and scope of Sony with a built-in publicity machinery, marketing and merchandising division would be a tremendous benefit in the long term.
You rarely, as a businessman, you rarely would do that because you don't really want to be sharing control with another entity. But it may have been for cash reasons, it may have been for management reasons. He may have said, look, I want to start cashing out some of its value. How do you get that money? You get that money by selling it.
The Beatles catalog, as his security and feeling he can do anything and that it's only going to go up in value, the catalog, so he can spend and do anything and feel the way he wants. So, like in life, it's a double-edged sword. It was a beautiful business decision and it only grows. On the other hand, I think in terms of the way he viewed himself, his spending habits, and maybe even psychologically, it might have been, the Pandora's box that was opened up for some of the, I would say, more negative things that have happened in his life. Interesting.
But even at the time that very deal to get more cash was happening, Michael was still busy shopping and showing no signs of reining in his spending, blowing huge amounts of money in art galleries such as this one, owned by men such as this one, gallery owner Tom Barnes.
Well, Michael came in for the very first time late one evening, and he was in disguise, as I'm told he often is. In this particular occasion, he looked like someone from the Middle East with a turban and sunglasses, etc. When it happened, one of our consultants came to me and said he was in the gallery. And so in order to avoid a chaotic situation, I instructed them to close the entrances to the gallery, not only for the safety of Michael Jackson, but for the safety of all the valuable artwork we had in there. And within, I would say, 5, maybe 10 minutes at the very most, there were probably 200 or 300 people outside the gallery wanting to get in. But I suspect that this was a way of life for him, but at least by us doing this, it gave him an opportunity to spend more time in the gallery and to give some consideration to the things that he really liked. It's kind of a cute story on how the sculptures were delivered to Neverland. The lady that sold the pieces to him decided that she would like to go over there and deliver them in person, thinking that she would get into Neverland and see what it was all about, since very few people had ever been there except some children. Anyway, she drove them over there on her 2 days off, and when she got to the gate, she was instructed to unload them at the gate and they would take them from there. So needless to say, she was quite disappointed that she didn't get any further than she did, and she didn't get to see Michael again. In the half hour that Michael was in the gallery, he spent a little more than $30,000, which was more than the average American would make in a year's period of time. This is Patrol Person Spankman, typical of what Michael Jackson would have been purchasing. And I think he has perhaps 8 or 10 of these. Cooks, policemen, butlers are very popular. He seemed to be attracted to almost every type and style. Subject matters vary a great deal also, from the rhinoceros, the American bald eagle, to children, to whimsical sculptures. This is typical of the type of bronze sculpture that Michael has purchased over the years. This particular piece would have sold for around $25,000 or $30,000 back in the early 90s. Today, it's approximately $50,000. This particular print here is of an original painting that Michael Jackson purchased. And as I recall, he paid about $35,000 for this. I think you'll find that most people, including Michael, of that kind of notoriety, usually do not handle the money part of the transaction. In our particular case, it was done by credit card over the phone a few days later. But knowing who he was when he said that's what he wanted, we didn't feel uncomfortable that he wasn't going to pay us.
I'll let you in on a little secret. Michael Jackson loves Michael Jackson. I mean, he had not 1, not 2, but 3 different wax figures of himself at Neverland Ranch. And this one is a pretty good portraiture. It shows Michael Jackson probably circa 1980s. This is sort of a simulation of what one of his fantasy military jackets would be. I doubt that he actually wore this. And it's pretty nicely done. To create a wax figure like this could cost $25,000, $30,000, $35,000. I am pretty safe in saying that it will sell for quite a bit less. I think something like this would go for, what do you think, Michael? $3,000, $5,000? Something like that, but it's still a thriller.
With scandal meaning he no longer possessed the earning power he was accustomed to, but still having a taste for buying pretty much anything, Michael decided he was in need of a slight image change, and he aimed pretty high.
When a person starts to believe, either in reality or perception, that they're bordering into the Messiah, I think they have lost a balance that will ultimately be very problematic in the long run.
The way he saw himself in the mirror started to change, and he saw himself as above the fray, almost like a religious or spiritual character now, as opposed to just a fantastic, great entertainer, songwriter, etc.
And that's what I think happened with Michael's record sales in the late 1990s into the 2000s. You know, it's just too much scandal, too much sensation, too much of a circus. People not taking you seriously anymore. And the consequence of all that is you stop making money.
But despite no longer bringing in the cash he was once used to, Michael's spending became even more excessive.
6,000.
Oh yeah, I like that.
3 of those.
At the beginning, it was decorating the house and making things beautiful for Neverland.
Is this one as well? Can I take that one?
He would purchase vases that were worth thousands of dollars, $250,000, not ask the price and just purchase it. He did that a number of times, and so things that he loved for the pure, let's say, artistic value or even architectural value, things that most people would renege on because the price tag was just too expensive, even though they loved it, Michael didn't matter to Michael. So whatever Michael wanted, Michael felt he had to have.
I love these candles holders. I'll take that and this clock.
Okay,
And so that's how the spending got to be really quite ludicrous, and started to build up and up.
And that as well. Yeah, I like to take this one as well. It's beautiful.
While extravagant, it was is all part of a building process to make Neverland the most incredible place on in the world, which it was. But then later, it went beyond just doing it to make Neverland beautiful. It was to satisfy, I guess, a deep-seated need to just spend money because Michael, like a lot of people, feel that money equates with happiness.
Typical of spending addicts like Michael is the idea that they're more interested in the purchase and the excitement and the possession and the seeking out of the object than owning the object. Once you own the object, the value goes away. So it is very, very common, and you see it in gambling and in other domains as well, that somebody with a spending addiction will spend and spend and spend without any concern about the actual amount that he has in the bank.
Reports show Jackson once spent $10,000 for in-flight goods on Swiss Air, $100,000 in a costume store, bought a $10,000 bottle of perfume and spent $43,000 staying in a hotel for 3 months. He went on a $250,000 shopping spree in Beverly Hills and hired Marlon Brando for $1 million and spent millions more on plane charters, antiques, paintings, travel and ill-advised deals that never happened. Then, in 2003, with his spending now at an all-time high, Michael's financial problems were about to hit rock bottom when he was once again accused of child abuse. Jackson was found to be not guilty of the charges.
Michael Jackson's legal fees for all of his legal problems over the last many years could be into the tens of millions of dollars. When you're talking about a defense team for some of the things he's been accused of doing, which these trials run on or these cases run on for months and months, between depositions, between the trial time itself, and he's paying the highest priced lawyers, it could certainly run into the many millions of dollars.
Jackson was desperately struggling with repayments on $270 million worth of bank loans. Jackson closed the gates to Neverland for good and asked Darren and Martin to auction off all the things he'd spent so many years and so many millions of dollars collecting, which at this point they were still intending to do.
We've worked a very favorable commission to him, but we get paid, more successful it is, we get a percentage of what the overall sale. So but he gets the majority of the funds. We really anticipate that the auction could do $10 to $20 million and maybe higher. I mean, he's got a fan base and collector base unlike anyone else in the world. Some of them we have confidentiality agreements with, but it's interesting to find out the A-list celebrities that are interested in collecting Michael Jackson.
With the sale of his things guaranteeing some much-needed cash, the auction seemed to mark the end of Michael's money madness, his huge wealth, his excessive spending, and his somewhat eccentric shopping. Or would it?
We want to resolve this no matter what. I mean, if it, meant stopping the auction, we would consider that, but it would have to be something where it's good for everybody.
And that's exactly what happened. The day after this interview, Darren and Martin settled with Michael for an undisclosed amount to get all his things back. But why and how? Had Michael Jackson just been thrown a new financial lifeline from somewhere else? It looked like he had something hidden up his sleeve. Something that smelled like money.